Thank you, Shannon, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. As Andre said, we're here to talk about reinvention. A lot of us have thought about it, but Shannon, we really wanted to talk to you specifically about, you are a 3-time Super Bowl champion, right? You're in the Hall of Fame. You have this amazing career. Like many of us, we have thought about what are we going to do next, but we actually sometimes can't find the path to do that. Can you talk a little bit about this transition that you've done from this amazing athlete to what I would even argue to being one of a media mega house right now?
Well, sorry guys, my voice, I've been traveling and I've been speaking a lot, so my voice is not as powerful or as booming as it normally is, so please bear with me. I think the biggest thing for me is that I understood very early on, playing professional football, doing what I did, that was what I did, that wasn't who I was. And so I always referred back to the things that had gotten me to that level. And so for me, once the football ended, okay, what was going to be my next endeavor? What was going to be the next mountain that I scale? I was always one of those very self-motivated people, is that once I conquered something, I didn't bask in the glory of that accomplishment. I looked out on the horizon and see what else I could accomplish. And so getting into the media aspect of it, it wasn't easy because you have to understand, I'm from rural South Georgia. I have a very heavy colloquial dialect. I had a lisp as a child growing up, so being in television wasn't the easiest thing for me, but I was undeterred. And I went to a lot of speech therapists and pathologists trying to correct the way I speak, the way I enunciate words, but at the end of the day, one of my greatest motivations in television is Charles Barkley. I was like, and I'm looking at Charles and I'm listening at Charles talk, and I was like, I can do that. And so I don't need to change who I am to fit into what they think I should be. And so once I understood that, it was an easy transition for me to get into television. But I've always had an opinion. I've always tried to be as honest as I possibly can. I think the biggest thing is that when you could, sometimes players, they feel they're beyond reproach, and they don't feel you can critique them because maybe you weren't as good a player as they were, or maybe you didn't play the game that you're critiquing said player in. But for me, I just try to be as honest as I possibly can. I'm critiquing your play, not you as a man, not you as a person, not you as a husband or a father or anything like that. I'm keeping everything that I talk about on the court, on the field, on the diamond, or wherever the case may be. So once I understood that and realized that there are going to be a lot of people that don't particularly like what you have to say because you're speaking honestly, and once you get past that, you're going to lose some friends in this business, and you have to be willing to accept that.
I think there's so many nuggets in what you just said. I think the piece I took away the most is the authenticity that you bring to every time you speak, and I think I too am from the South, and I too grew up with a very strong accent, which none of you can hear right now. But I think part of what you said is being yourself. People recognize that, and so when we think about kind of how you've become truly a mega house in media, I would love if you could explain a little bit about what you see in this kind of transition or this reinvention of black co-hosts or black hosts of podcasts. Talk to me about why you think that has actually started to rise, and how, as a brand like SAUCONY, I would want to consider or want to make sure that I'm thinking about black hosts.
Well, I think the thing for me is that if you won't let me drive in your lane, I'll create a lane for myself. I understood that the way I talk on Nightcap with Ocho and I'm a host, and he's a host also of that show. They're not going to let us talk like that on traditional television, and that's okay. So we'll create a platform that people in my community and anybody that wants to listen to that kind of conversation, that kind of rhetoric, they could come listen to it. And I think once we did that, and that's the biggest thing for me, I don't have a problem. If you don't let me play on your court, I'll create my own court, and I'll figure a game that I can play, and then I'll take your audience, and they'll come because they like the game that I'm playing.
I think that's why Blackweek was created. I think that's why. Yeah, I think we agree with that.
I don't complain what they're not being fair. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Because at some point in time, people are going to get tired of you saying you're being victimized. So I'm going to take my situation, growing up how I grew up, and I'm going to use that to my advantage, because I always look at it like how I grew up. I was like, Shannon, think about it. Look from where you came to where you are.
Agreed. Yeah.
You mean to tell me that little last step is going to be a hurdle or a barrier that's going to keep you from ascending to a different height? And I said, no. And so once I got into the space, because originally when I first started Club Shay Shay, I had no idea what podcasts were. And I remember my EP, CJ, who's the producer of Club Shay Shay, he was like, man, you need to do a podcast. I was like, CJ, do a podcast for what? What am I going to talk about? He's like, you can talk about sports, you can interview people. And so once I was like, well, how do I go about getting people on? And he said, I tell you what, go in your phone, anybody that you have famous in your phone, ask them would they come on. And so that's kind of how it started. I was
very easy. Call everyone.
I was very, very fortunate that I had the Snoop Dogg's and I had the Ice Cubes and I had the Floyd Mayweathers and I had a lot of the guys that it gave me credibility because I had some of the stars. And it's a lot different for me than someone starting from the bottom that doesn't have those kind of contact and doesn't have that kind of reach. But don't be deterred. Don't be deterred that like I got to start from the bottom, because we all had to start somewhere. Now some of us start at a little higher point, but it wasn't like I started at where I am now. But I built up gradually and built the trust of people that watch the podcast. They like the way I approach it. I think the thing for me is that when you see Club Shay Shay, the reason why the conversations go so long is because I don't interrupt the guest. I ask them the question and I stand back. Also, when I have a guest on Club Shay Shay, I don't watch any of the previous interviews that they've done, because I don't want to look at them with judgy eyes. And when they come sit across from me, they know it's a genuineness, that I don't judge them. I have no preconceived notion of who they are. And I let them speak freely without judgment. And people get upset with me and say I'm being messy. I ask you a question. I always ask, it's just like Joey, if you came on, I was like, Joey, is there anything that you don't wish to talk about? Yeah. Because I believe that when I'm talking to the guest that's on the show, I can have a very interesting conversation with said individual without going over their most salacious detail.
I 100% agree with that. So we won't do that here today either. I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about this concept around equitable access to within both sport and with corporate, particularly with Black females. And you have 2 daughters. We talked about this a little earlier today. And I'm a Black female in corporate America. And one of the things that I'm very interested about when I see sport, I see the inequalities much greater, right? The whole situation with Britney, she would have never been in Russia if she didn't make $77,000 a year versus her male counterparts. So I think I would love your point of view, because you have lived in both sport and now you're, again, in this amazing media corporate world. What do we need to do to change the gap for both athletes, women athletes, and women executives?
Well, I think we're starting to see a change with the WNBA. We're starting to see the people starting to watch, the advertisers are starting to come, because it's a monetary situation. I understand that women, they want to be paid fair value, and they deserve to be paid fair value or earned value, however the case you want to look at it. And I think the thing is that women don't have the same number. There's no football league for women. There's no baseball league for women. And so the sports that generate the most money here in America, they aren't those same sports for women. Excuse me. They do have the WNBA, and we see the salaries are starting to rise. I think they're going to rise even higher. The advertisers are starting to come. They ask us, in my situation with Nightcap, they're asking, okay, are you going to talk, WNBA, are you going to talk women's sport? Is there a situation where you can create a space where women can actually talk sports? And so I'm starting to see an uptick and the thirst and for women's sport. And so I think that's the biggest thing is to create I wish women could play football so they could get.
I don't know. We don't want to get
They might not get 60 million, but they can get 10 or 15.
For sure.
But I think that's the biggest thing is to create. There has to be. It's called supply and demand. There's a reason. I remember when bottled water. Everybody remember, man, I ain't paying no dollar for no bottled water when I can get it for free. You pay $4 for it. You pay $4 or $5 for it. And so I think the thing is that women are creating a demand for themselves. You see it in soccer, and they're having to go overseas. But they have these soccer leagues right here in the U.S., and the women are making okay money. Not maybe not what they should make, but as the demand increases, I think we will see an uptick in salary. But I definitely think the WNBA is going to be the first where we have a woman that makes $1 million a year, and I think it's long overdue.
I think it's coming soon. I think creators in this room are going to help us. I think you're right that it's about supply and demand. We have to make sure that advertisers know that women are great and that they can actually demand those advertising dollars. I always say if the Jets and Giants can play in the same stadium, so can the Liberty and the Knicks. We can figure it out. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but they can. And I think we're starting to see, like I said, I mean, I've had some advertisers and sponsors are asking, is there a way you can create a segment where you talk about the WNBA or you talk about women's sport? And I was like, absolutely. I mean, if that's something, and I've been, I've had Chanel Gumake on, I've had Monica McNutt on, I've had Arika Ogunbowale on. And so I always, like, during this WNBA season, anytime that the women would like to come on and have, 10, 15-minute conversation to promote that sport, I'm all for it. And so hopefully I can get, Stewie and Asia Wilson and Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, Angel. Angel has her own podcast, so I don't know how much she wants to cross-promote, but I don't have a problem having women on and giving them an opportunity to shine.
I love that. We will be there. We'll make sure. I want to just pivot back, and I appreciate you indulging me in that little moment. I want to pivot back to the idea of the business side of and monetizing digital media. Can you talk a little bit about your strategy or your team's strategy to make sure, like you said, you're always thinking steps ahead? So can you talk a little bit about, and again, don't give us your trade secrets, but talk a little bit about the strategies that you employ as you think about how do you continue to digitize what you're doing?
Over-deliver. If you can promise the advertisers or the sponsors 1 million views, you give them 1.5, you give them 2. If they want 3-4 million impressions, you give them 10. I'm a guy that I'll over-deliver. And, we spend a lot of money at Shay Media studying trends. We want to be in front of the trend. We want to be in the trend. We don't want to be behind the trend. So we spend a lot of money. We study who's watching our program. We study where the market is heading, and we try to stay ahead of that. But I think the biggest thing for us is that we over-deliver, because we never want to be in a situation where we promise someone something and we couldn't deliver that. We have, with Nightcap, we only have about 16 months of data, but with Club Shay, we have 3.5, 4 years of data that shows this is what we normally do. And I think we do a good job of doing that. And I think we've shown advertisers and sponsors that when you come and you advertise or you, whatever the case may be, you're going to get bang for your buck. Club Shay, I think we have the highest of any YouTube channel where people watch us on television. Like 78% of our viewers watch us on television, which is unheard of.
Unheard of. Yeah.
It's hard to believe that like 46% of of Nightcap's audience are female.
Really?
Yes. I was surprised when I saw it.
I'm surprised.
I see the look on your face. That's how I was when I saw those numbers also. But I think the thing is for us is that we always try to over-deliver. Whether it's a custom segment, whether it's whatever the case may be, we go above and beyond, because it's just not about a 3-month or 6 month commitment. We want them to commit to multiple years.
Right.
We want to be in partnership, and I think that's the biggest thing that we've been able to do. So I think anybody that's partnered with any part of Shay Media, I think they've been very happy with the return on their investment.
I feel like you're ready for your upfront, right? We should have Shannon right out there for the front. Talk to me a little bit about, or help us understand, we talked a little bit about Black creators, and I think that's what you described yourself as earlier. Like at the end of the day, you are constantly thinking about how to create either opportunity or create a moment. And when we think about media platforms like Club Shay and its importance in pop culture, why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think the thing is that for the longest time, our community felt like they haven't been heard. They didn't have a voice. And so now it was our job, if that's the path that you choose to go on, is to create that and give them voices, give them an opportunity to be heard, give them an opportunity to be seen. I think that's the longest time for me. It's my job as a creator, as a Black creator, is to give my people a voice. Give my people, put light on my people. And so that's what I've tried to do since I've gotten into this space, is to create opportunities. If you look at, my hiring practice. I mean, I think I have more women than men.
We love that.
But I think the thing is, I just want someone to work. And people always ask, people ask me and say, well, Shannon, how do you go about hiring? I want them to be obsessed. I want them to be as driven as I am. But one of the first things I ask someone, what are you passionate about? If people tell me they don't have any passion, they can't work for me. Because I need you passionate about something. Because if you're passionate about something, you'll spring out of bed and get ready and want to do it. So if you don't really have a passion to do something, I'm probably not the place that you want to be, because we're very motivated, we're very driven, because that's the only way to do things. And so I'm not the easiest boss to work for. You're gonna, I don't
Me
make
neither,
it,
Shannon.
no,
I've been told.
but when you come to me and say, well, Shannon, I think I should make X, okay. Fine, I don't have a problem. I don't go back and forth and say, if somebody says I should make $10, I don't say, well, what about $7.50? I give them the $10.
Yeah.
But I expect you to work. I expect you to show up. I expect you to do your job. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not going to look over your shoulder. But if you're not doing that job, I'm going to find someone else that will.
Do you think you learned that? Because a lot of what you're saying, I learned from my dad. I think the Southern men in my life taught me so much about, like, my father, who's my best friend in the world. He literally said to me, we all know we were told you have to be 4 times better. Mm-hmm. But beyond that as well, pay people what they're worth.
Yes.
Is like literally the number one thing he has always taught me. Do you think like the way you grew up, being in the South, being, having all the different kind of, I grew up poor, I didn't grow up wealthy, so I always knew like, these are the things you have to do. How do you think how you grew up impacts like the drive and the will you have now?
It does. But that is a blessing and a curse, because the one thing that I've had to realize is that everybody doesn't have the same passion and desire that I have. And also, that's not their company. So to expect someone, I don't expect someone maybe to have the same burning desire to see Shay Media scale to the top, but I want them to have a passion, have a desire, because you're making a good compensation. You get great benefits, and I want you to come to work and be happy. Because I'm not going to look over your shoulder. I'm not, okay, did you do that? Did you do that? You have a task, you have an assignment, get the task done, and if you finish, if you're supposed, if you can finish it in 4 hours and it's an 8-hour day, bye. Long as you do your job, that's it. And I think the biggest thing, because like when we grew up, I was making, $5 a day, $7 a day, but I value a dollar, and I told the story, I don't know if anybody here has heard it. I remember this probably had to be 76, 77, so I was probably 8, 9 years old. And we was making $5 a day, and we worked from what we call can't to can't. You couldn't see in the morning when you left for work because it was dark, and you couldn't see when you got home because it was dark again. So we was making $5 a day, and I let my cousin talk. It's like, man, you need to tell Mr. Joe we need a raise. Sure enough, Shannon, Mr. Joe, man, we be working hard. We be working 10, 12 hours a day. We need a raise. Back then, if you can believe it or not, I wasn't as big as I am now. They used to call me Pee-wee because I was so small. So he said, Pee-wee, well, how much you think you should make? I was thinking about it. I said, Mr. Joe, you should give us a $1 raise. He said, okay, sure. So we go from $5 to $6. The next day, me and my cousin, we go in the field. We bull jiving around. We're not doing what we're supposed to. My sister goes home and tell my grandmother, say, Granny, Mr. Joe gave them boys a raise, and they ain't doing nothing but play in the fields today. My grandmother didn't say a word. Next morning, my grandmother sitting on the bed. Mr. Joe come, he blow the horn. My grandma walk out on the front porch. She say, Joe. He said, yeah, Mary, how you doing? She said, I'm fine. She said, I heard you gave them boys a raise. He said, yeah, Mary, I gave them a $1 raise. They be working hard. She said, Libby told me they was messing around yesterday. She said, take it back.
I love your grandmother.
From that point on, a man gives you an honest day's salary, you give him an honest day's work.
100%, 100%. I also love a lesson that I heard in your story too, about negotiation, right? He asked how much you think it was worth, and you said $1. Do you think you could have gotten 2?
Repeat that?
He asked you, when you said, I need a raise, Mr. Joe.
Yes.
He said, well, how much do you think it's worth?
Yeah.
You said $1.
$1.
Do you think you could have gotten 2? Because
Man,
we're all of us are like, how do we go in and negotiate that raise?
But then he might have cut me from 5 to 4. So
Right.
I did no. I mean, $5, that was, for me,
That's a lot in the
that was a
70s.
lot of money. That was a lot of money back then. I mean, to work 5 days a week, I was making $25, and then you worked half a day on Saturday, that was $250, so $27.50. And back then, we had to buy our own clothes. I mean, it wasn't like, my grandmother had making a lot of money. My grandmother was making $197 every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So that was our opportunity to buy school clothes for the year. Obviously, things weren't as expensive as they are now. But no, I don't think dollars seemed like a lot of money back then. I mean, you can get 4 honey buns, you can get 4 sodas.
At the candy lady, right?
Yes.
Nobody knows
I
that.
think
If you're not from the South,
Yeah, you get
don't know
100
that.
cookies.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about all the things I could get for that
Yeah,
dollar.
I was going
So
to the candy
that
lady
was
and get the frozy,
Yes,
right? For
that was
25 cents.
a dollar was a lot of
A
money
lot of
back
money,
then. You
yeah,
could get
for
a
sure.
lot for $1 back
Yeah.
then. So that's the way I looked at it. I was thinking like, that's 4 honey buns. That's 4 sodas.
Yeah,
that
Mary
seemed
Cake.
That seemed like a good pay
For
raise.
sure. I want to go back to one more thing before we open up for questions. You mentioned that when you interview your guests, you don't pre-read. I'm going to call it a pre-read, and you let them just talk. And and I watch your show. The thing that I appreciate is the space the safe space that you allow for them to talk, without getting too much into the details. Can you share just a little bit about why that's so important for you as a Black creator to give other Black entertainers, media athletes that safe space to talk freely?
Well, this is an opportunity for my viewing and listening audience to hear their voices. They didn't tune in to hear me. They tuned in to hear them. And so my job is to ask the question, get out of the way. There are times that I feel I need to follow up, and there are times that I let the guests, if they feel they need to follow up. And so for me, that's the way I approach it. I mean, because sometimes, I've heard, like, bro, can you please stop cutting them off? Can you let them talk? They're going in a direction, and then all of a sudden, you ruin the moment. I never want a person to like, where was I? Because I cut them off. Go as long as you want. Sometimes you ask a question, and they might go 5, 6, 7 minutes. That's fine. Now, obviously, if we under time restraints, sometimes we was like, Shannon, I only got 60 minutes, maybe 75. Sometimes they say I got 75, maybe 90. But a lot of times they're like, I got as much time as you need. And you see sometimes my interviews, they'll go anywhere between, an hour on the short end. But if they go an hour, that's what they've told me they had. And some, Kat was 246. Monique was about 3 hours. Terry Crews was about
I had to watch Kat on the plane.
But the thing is with Kat could have been
A whole
3
day,
hours.
I think.
No, yeah, really. No. I still had 20 minutes worth of questions. And I just remember, like, finishing up, because my producer's behind me. And so, we rap, and I'm looking at my producer, and he's shaking his head. I cover my eyes like, what? Did I mess up? Did I say something? Did he say something? He's just shaking his head. And I was like, so now I'm worried. Because a lot of times I'm in it, I don't really hear if they curse or if they say something, because I'm in the moment. And I'm just looking, and he's shaking his head. And so now, by this time, I'm nervous. So I get up, and I go back there. I got my mic covered. I was like, what, CJ, what happened? He's like, Shannon, they're going to be talking about this for years.
And they will.
And I'm like, really? He's like, no, Shannon, you don't realize what he just did. And so I say, you think we're going to do like 10 million views? He's like, you're going to do more than 10 million views. And I remember we released it, but how Kat happened, I've been trying to get Kat on the podcast for a year. Kat doesn't fly. He takes the tour bus.
My gosh.
So he's not going to be on that side of town. I'm going to my lawyer's office on a Friday. As I'm getting off the elevator, there's a lady getting on the elevator. And she looks at me. She said, hey, Shannon, how you doing? I said, hey, ma'am, how are you? I said, do I know you? She said, no, you don't know me. She says, she's like, what are you doing here? I said, my agent, Marvin, is here. She said, oh, I love Marvin. I love Allison. She said, it's funny that I've never seen you here. I said, yeah, they've been here for like 4 years. She said, it's funny, I've worked here for 7 years. And I'm like, I've never seen you before. And she says, it's funny, today is my last day. I said, really? I said, if you don't mind me asking, what are you going to do? She said, actually, I'm going to be the executive assistant to Cat Williams.
That's God. That's God right there.
I say, it's funny that you say that. I've been trying to get Kat on the show for over a year. So mind you now, this is a Friday. The following Friday, Kat's sitting in that chair across from me.
Totally God. Totally. I mean, it has to be.
And it changed my life completely in the digital space. Look, we had Steve Harvey. I mean, we had some really good interviews. We had Steve Harvey. We had a lot of comedians. We had Ricky Smiley. We had Earthquake. We had Sid the Entertainer. We had Michael Blackston. We had JB Smooth. We had Jay Farrell. We've had DeMar DeRozan. We've had a lot. Ice Cube, Floyd Mayweather, Snoop Dogg, Rick Ross. We've had a lot of people. Cat Williams changed my life digitally.
For sure. And he gave us a lot to think about now as well. I know we're running up on time, and I think there's questions.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Theophilus. Hi. Theophilus, creator strategist. I'm here in advertising. So we've seen, like, your ambition on the field. I mean, like, you're a Hall of Fame player. That's a big deal. We've seen how Club Shay Shay has helped elevate and kind of change black media as a whole. I'm curious, for the ambitious mind, what's next?
Well, actually, I'm trying to give other people opportunities. But you know the thing that I found out, when I tell people my work schedule, I don't want to work that hard.
They don't want to eat then.
So what you want me to do about that?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, you have to work. I said, people think that you just climb, you just get there, you just magically appear on top of the mountain. And I'm not saying that I'm on the top of the mountain, but people, I'm telling you, when I've talked to people and I've said, well, this is what I do. Okay, I tape Nightcap 4 nights a week, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. In 2 weeks, we're going to go to 5 nights a week. I have 2 days a week on First Take, and then I tape 2 shows, normally of Club Shay Shay a week. So that's 8 to 10 shows a week. Man, I ain't trying to work like that. So what you want me to do? There's a process to get, if you go ask Oprah, if you go ask someone that's ultra successful, especially in the media space, Tyler Perry, you ask someone what it takes to be that, that's what it takes. I wish there was a simpler way that I could explain it to people, but there's a process and there's no balance. People get upset with me when I say there's no balance to greatness, and there's not. Because balance is not a commitment, it is a singular focus. And you must deny things going out with your friends, and maybe you're gonna miss some things with your family. But the question is, what do you truly desire? Because there are goals, you write down your goals here, but how many times do you write down what you're willing to sacrifice to achieve those goals? See, everybody got a goal. But what are you willing to sacrifice? Well, I ain't gonna sacrifice no time. I ain't gonna sacrifice this. The greater the goal, the greater the sacrifice must be to meet those goals.
100%. And I think people underestimate when you're an athlete, your schedule's crazy too.
It is.
I think people think you just show up, like you practice once and then you show up on game day, but your schedule's crazy. It
is. I think the thing for us is that my grandfather was a military guy, so time is very important to me. I don't waste time. It's the one commodity that you can't recapture. And so I don't waste my time. I'm very structured, I'm very disciplined, and I think the things that served me well in my football career serves me well in my post career. And I think you have to have that. And so people don't, you have to be willing to put the time in, you have to be willing to sacrifice, and you have to be, and if you wanted to be great, you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah, and one of the tips I give people when they're like, how do you hire? I always look for athletes. I look, in certain sports too, if you were a swimmer, if you had to do anything that requires great sacrifice,
yes,
to your point, because then you can do this job.
Yes.
Because every day is not going to be easy. So I always ask, like, were you an athlete? Were you a swimmer? Did you play, like, what sport did you play? Mm-hmm. And were you good?
Yes.
That's important too. Were you good?
The more disciplined, the more disciplined you are.
Yeah.
Because you have to. The more disciplined you are, the easier it is. And not that it's easy, but you will find a way to be structured. Like, okay, I got this amount of time. Okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z in this amount of said time. And so that's the biggest thing. And I don't mind helping people because it's funny, a lot of people that I've hired off the internet. Man, give me a job. Hey, what can you do? Man, I can do X, Y, and Z. Okay, call this person.
Perfect.
I hire them.
Yeah, so everybody knows how you get a job. Is there another question? Okay, there's lots. So we're going to go right here. Yeah, right. No, with the bun.
You.
Yes, be confident. You raised your hand. You have the question.
Hi, Shannon. I'm Melissa. I think you do a really good job with your show, and I was wondering, especially with your time, how do you prepare for your show without it being too structured?
Well, there is no prep when it comes to Nightcap. Basically, we get the topics. Ocho and I don't talk at all, and then we just go. It's just free flowing. Obviously, if you watch Nightcap, you can tell there's no structure to that. When it comes to Club Shay Shay, we try to ask questions. If you were sitting across from the guest, I believe this is what you would ask. If he was sitting across from the guest, this is what they would ask. And I try to get them comfortable enough, because I think if you make someone comfortable enough, they'll share things with you that they haven't shared before or they haven't shared in a very long time. And so that's my job. My job is to make them comfortable enough, and it has nothing to do with Shea by LaPortier. Trust me, they're not drinking that much of it to open up like that. But I think the biggest thing is that what they tell me is that you're genuine. You make me feel comfortable. You make me feel like I've known you for an extended period of time. And when people are comfortable, they'll share things. That's why when, a lot of times you ladies, you go to the hairdresser, the hair salon, you talk to your hairdresser because you're comfortable with said person. The guys go to the barbershop, they share things with their barbers because they're comfortable with that person. Even though a lot of these people I'm meeting for the very first time, I try to make them feel as comfortable as they possibly can, and they open up to me.
Great. I think we have time for one more. I feel like we should go in the back because you never read a question in the back. So that hand all the way in the back. Yes, you're turning around. Your question.
Hi, my name's Lubens Joy. We used to work together. Good to see you again. Shannon, nice to meet you. Nice to hear from you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Can't wait for you to drop your book on Mary Porter's sayings one day. My question for you is, how do you deal with criticism as you rise in the digital space? It's a more volatile space, a lot more people, a lot more opinions that can come your way. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that? How do you block out the noise?
You know what? That's the hardest thing, because when I played football, I understood that fans from the opposing team was going to dislike me because I was a pretty good football player. So I understood that. And I don't have a problem with criticism. If you say it, I'm not creating great content, I can live with that. But what I've learned is an uptick in the personal attacks. And see, that's what I have a problem with. And see, I don't like people playing with my name. Oh, it's just words. Because the internet, people believe what they hear on the internet. And so, you start letting people play with their name, oh, that's got to be true. And see, and then I'm in a situation, if I respond, if it wasn't true, he wouldn't have responded. If I do respond, it's got to be true because I hit dog holler. So I'm in an unattainable situation. But don't play with my name. I'm just trying to figure out, all of a sudden, once Cat Williams came along, now, I've been having small dogs for 15 years. I wasn't gay. I've been carrying Mercies, man persons, whatever you want to call them, since 1999. Not a word. Now all of a sudden, and it's a lot. Look, my community is great to me, and my sister helped me understand this. She said, Shannon, you're not to where you are without the people in your community. She says, but you have to understand, everybody's not going to be happy for your success. That was the most hurtful, is because of people that I thought I ain't say close, I don't really hang with a whole lot of people, but it was the people that I thought was cool with me that would say things, that are saying things that bother me. But I remember, and I remember my grandfather said, he said, boy, the devil will never show up as the devil, because if he did, you wouldn't do the deal with him. See, your enemy will never show up as the enemy, because if he did, you wouldn't let him in your circle to begin with, would you? He said, you just have to be mindful. And I'm starting to see that. And people like these comedians, they say, well, Shannon, it's just a joke. I say, a lot of times people hide how they truly feel in a joke. I say, don't play with me like that. I say, I'm from rural South Georgia, and that's never been okay. I said, if you saw me on the street, would you come up to me and say what you're saying when you got the microphone in your hand? Of course you wouldn't. I say, so why would you say it now? I said, bro, I ain't got no problem with you. I've never had a problem with anybody. You don't see me out. I don't hang out. I'm to myself. I'm a very, very private person. A month ago, notwithstanding.
I told you I wasn't going to go there, Shannon. It was a question in the audience unplanted. I mean, he said he worked with me, but I don't know him. So
a month ago, notwithstanding. But I think the thing, and plus, people say, well, that was staged. So you mean to tell me I'm willing to ruin my good name, my grandmother's good name. First time I've ever been on IG Live in my life. And that's what I'm gonna put on IG Live. Not me in the kitchen, not me, anything like that. I said, y'all think I'm willing to risk I work for Disney. I work for Disney. So you mean to tell me I'm willing to risk a 7-8-figure job you're gonna believe what you want to believe anyway. There's nothing. Look, I don't care who you put, but you know, if you like President Trump, it doesn't matter what he says, you're gonna believe what he says. If you like VP, Madam VP, you're gonna believe. So there's nothing I can do because you're gonna say, oh, he's that way anyway. If you see me if I have 10 women, oh, he's trying to cover up, so I can't win. So I just stopped trying. I've never tried to convince somebody who I was or how I was. I know who I am at the end of the day. And I told my kids this. I say, y'all good? Because that's what now you start messing with my kids. Now you and I gonna have a problem, a serious problem. My kids are good. My sister, my mom. My mom's really not on social media like that, so she don't really know. She'll ask my sister. Some of her friends will tell her from things to things. But for the most part, as long as my kids, my sister, my brother are good, I'm good.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. My dad used to say the same thing as your granddad. My dad would say, the devil doesn't chase what God has promised. Mm-hmm. So you're promised your favor, then he's going to chase you. Yeah.
But if they here's the thing. I see a lot of people, most of their content is about me. I'm like, bro, if you create better content and that wasn't about me, people want to hear you talk about something other than Shannon Sharpe. I know you think my life is interesting. It's really not. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of monotony. It's very mundane. But, bro, just create. Shannon said this. Shannon and Stephen A. doing that. Well, Shannon had a dog. Well, Shannon bro.
They owe you a check.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people owe me that check for Cat.
For Cat,
but
yeah.
No, but that's a part of it.
Yeah.
I get it, and it's hard for me to understand. Because, like I said, I didn't really know anything about this. Well, now, to see LeBron has gone through for 20-plus years, and to see some of the vitriol with some of these professional athletes to grow through, I've only gotten a glimpse of it over the last year and a half, last 2 years. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Yeah. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I think we're at time. So we want to thank you, Shannon, for being so honest.
Thank you, Joy. And I'm going to say this. I think the thing is, what has happened is that because of so much of what you see on social media, be it IG, Twitter, wherever you consume social media from, because so much of it is fake, when people give you genuineness and authenticity, you believe they're lying.
Agreed.
And it's sad that we've come to this point, because I find myself sometimes looking like, you had sex with my mom and you my daughter and all kind of foolishness. And I'm like, it's made up. But because so much of it is fake, when people give you realness, when people give you genuine and authenticity, and sometimes I go above and beyond what is necessary, and I've had to learn how to scale it back, Shannon. It's okay just to the truth. It's okay to not say anything, because there's a lot of stuff floating around out there now. But I'm like, you know what? I'm at peace. I'm at peace with where I am now. It's a good place. It took me a while to have peace and have patience, because I asked God to give me patience. He doesn't give you patience. He puts you in a situation where patience is required.
Exactly. 100%. Well, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.